ค่ะคุณแดน thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Now, let me first ask you this. As the global CEO of Principal, what is the landscape like in terms of the world's aging societies? Paint us a picture of what it looks like right now.
The first thing I'd say is it's real.
Real.
It's real. We're getting older. We're living longer. And that's the upside. That's the good news. The question, however, not just here in Thailand, but around the world is, are you prepared? Are you prepared mentally? Are you prepared physically? Are you prepared financially? And each one of those, it creates quite a challenge for all of us. Because if you just looked at, for example, right here in Thailand, in the last 50 years, the longevity, the probability of you 50 years ago, you would have lived to age 55. Now you're going to make it to age 75. And are you prepared financially to be able to do that?
We're looking forward to longer lives, but then again, we have to ask ourselves, are we ready in the three different aspects that you mentioned? You're in the Thai market now. Give us an idea of who Principled is.
Believe it or not, we're 140 years old.
Oh, dear.
And I didn't start the company, all right? A gentleman by the name of Edward Temple started the company. We do business in about 80 different countries. We do business, if you will, in the retirement space in a really intense way in 10 specific countries. And then if you just looked at the sheer size of our customer base, it's roughly 23 million customers around the world. So we're large, we're formidable, and we look forward to serving as many customers as we possibly can in those markets.
Now, in your experience, in the 80 markets that you've worked in the past years, what has been the biggest challenge in communicating to people that, hey, this is what we're looking towards now?
Yes.
And you need to take this seriously.
I think there was a day and age around the world, all of us come from backgrounds, our heritages, and likely our parents and our grandparents went through some very difficult period of time that required a great deal of discipline and savings. And it was the difference in life and death, having food or not having food. And I think what's dissipated, even in spite of a global recession back in 08 and 09, that constant demand for immediate consumption. I keep coming back to one key theme. You must prioritize setting money aside today for your future. And to the extent we can continue to remind people of the importance of doing that, the compounding effect, as you know, of lifetime savings is exponential. And those first years are so vitally important, starting at 23, 25, and 27, not waiting until you're in your 30s. As for excuses, the excuses around the world are ubiquitous.
Yes.
Everyone's got them. I have to go to college. I have to pay my college loans. We had a baby. It was my first job. As soon as I get my something paid for, I will. But the reality is, who should you really pay first? Yourself.
Yes.
We have to pay ourselves first. Good rule of thumb, and this one works in every country. If you're going to work for 35 years, if you save 15% of your income, over that 35-year period of time, you'll replace 85% of your pre-retirement income.
You mentioned the ages of 23, 25,
right,
and 27.
Right.
Those are the key points where people need to start saving?
I wouldn't necessarily. What I would really try to emphasize is I realize you have to get out of college, get established. Country by country differs on what age you are, but by 27 you got to be digging in and you've got to be doing the heavy lifting around prioritizing for retirement savings. I look at $1,000 phones. I look at the cost of having a phone. I look at the price of expensive cars and payments on cars and very nice condominiums. People just have to do a better job of prioritizing for their long-term retirement.
It's so luring to see, to want something and being first of all in a position to have the spending power. How do you suggest an average Thai weigh a want and a need?
Yes. The compounding effect of starting to save sooner, no matter what your asset allocation is, no matter what it is, you're going to accumulate an enormous amount of wealth. But waiting too long into your career to start that is what is generally the biggest derailer for people adequately retiring financially sound. The bottom line, it ends up being on our shoulders as individuals to set money aside. The good news is most countries have some form of tax policy that encourages us to set the money aside.
Yes, Thailand does as well.
It's very attractive. It gives us the opportunity to draw down later, sometimes tax-free or tax-deferred. So there's a lot of really important social structures, and Thailand, as you say appropriately so, has that. It encourages us to go ahead and save ourselves. I think also in this day and age of individuality, if you had to give a choice between ensuring that you did it yourself or being dependent on a third party, what would your choice be?
Well, I would depend on myself, obviously.
You depend on yourself.
Yeah.
We all would.
What about later on in life? Suppose, let's say, hey, I really didn't think about this. No one told me I'd live a long, long time. It looks as though I might live longer than I expected. I'm now, let's say, 40, 45. I've got a very comfortable income. What do you tell those people? I mean, is it too late? How much will they have to spend in terms of, well, not spend, but save in terms of preparing for their retirement? What would be your advice to those people?
Number one, it's never too late. If you were 55, it's not too late. 45, I think, is actually not difficult, but there are sacrifices. And sometimes you just have to do the math to sit down and walk through what are your expenses. That person who's in their 45s, they're going to be having to save 20 to 25% of their income in order to fund adequately. Here's one statistic. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I can speak to the U.S. on this, so I apologize for not having a global statistic. 50% of the people who retire in the United States retire sooner than they thought they were going to retire for one of three reasons: their health, their spouse's health, or the proverbial skills were no longer needed. And we all know what that means, right? We all know what that means. And so the point is simply saying, well, instead of retiring at 65, I'll retire at 67 or 70. There's a pretty good chance between your health, your spouse's health, and your skills no longer being current, it doesn't happen. So you still got to sort of think about 65 as being the optimal year by which to retire. You mentioned 45, 20 years funding, very doable. And you might have to make some really tough decisions. What are some of those tough decisions? Lay off the traveling, right? I mean, that's a big expense. It's a big lump sum. It may mean reducing the size of your apartment or your home, getting something smaller. It may mean helping your children less than you're helping them. But those are all the sorts of things that you got to take a really hard look at in order to make the sacrifices for not having started soon enough.
Thank you very much for all your insight today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
ผู้ชมนะคะเห็นภาพรวมนะว่าสิ่งที่เรากำลังมองอยู่ในตอนนี้ก็คือว่าการที่จะมองไปในอนาคตแล้วบอกว่าเราอยากที่จะทำให้ตัวเองมั่นคงและอยู่ได้ในมาตรฐานที่เราคาดหวังในยามแก่เฒ่ามองกันตั้งแต่ตอนนี้ไม่ว่าจะตอนนี้อายุเท่าไหร่ก็แล้วแต่สามารถเริ่มต้นได้ด้วยหลักการของคุณแดนที่บอกว่าเริ่ม 10% ก็ได้แล้วก็เป้าหมายคือ 15% ใน 3 ปีและเพิ่มขึ้นเรื่อยๆจากนั้นก็สามารถที่จะเดินต่อได้แล้วก็สามารถที่จะเกษียณแบบมั่นคงได้นี่ก็คือเรื่องราวที่นำมาฝากกันในวันนี้นะคะตอนนี้กลับไปที่ห้องส่งก่อนค่ะ
ถือเป็นมุมมองที่ดีนะคะจากทาง Principal Financial Group ที่ให้มุมมองเกี่ยวกับชีวิตที่ยืนยาวและการมีอิสรภาพทางการเงินหลังวัยเกษียณค่ะวันนี้เวลาของ Halftime Report หมดลงแล้วนะคะดิฉันเมย์ สรวณีต้องขอลาคุณผู้ชมไปก่อนสวัสดีค่ะ